Hello and welcome back to the Coffee Table Podcast. My name is Venus Zaire, and we are going to call this Season 2, Episode 1. I'm a procrastinator when it comes to engaging with media. And sometimes if a show is too popular and I feel like it's not good enough to be that popular, I'm not going to finish it. I'll finish a bad show if nobody knows about it. But finishing a show that I think was not that good and everybody talked about like it was like the best thing in the world, there's nothing more painful to me than that. However, when it came to Euphoria, I had a different eyesight on that. When it first came to the first two seasons of Euphoria, I did not engage with Euphoria the way that other people engage with Euphoria. I was not engaging in Euphoria Sundays. Okay, I'm new to the Euphoria Sunday game. However, from the first time I watched an episode of Euphoria, I was like, I like this show. You know what I'm saying? I like this show. Mind you, I'm grown. I'm 25. I don't like watching shows that are supposed to be little girls. You know what I'm saying? Like, what am I, like, I can't really, relate to that anymore. When I was a teenager, like, teenage shows made sense because I was a teenager. However, I am not a teenager anymore. So, watching a whole bunch of, 16-year-olds navigate, high school is not necessarily something that I want to engage in as a form of media. However, I think the interesting introspective point to me was, as we know from the first episode of what we're now going to refer to as Season 1 of the Coffee Table, I am very intrigued about people and their relationship with drugs. When the Midnight Gospel show that was on Netflix, when they dropped that episode and they spoke about how drugs aren't bad, but the relationship that we cultivate with them is essentially what creates the morality of whether or not drugs should be done. That subject matter interests me because I think that it calls into question, can we say that with pretty much anything? You know what I'm saying? And that brings the philosophical question of what is good and what is bad, and how gray area impacts the way that we navigate the world, and how that can also impact the way that different people view morality and the things that they'll do in order to perform morality in a way that they think other people will perform morality. But I digress. The intricacy of the main character being in high school, but also be suffering with mental health issues, to the point where she is engaging in drugs, and we are watching her and the other girls in her school navigate engaging with drugs and sex and growing up. We are watching the males figure themselves out and how to engage with their masculine counterparts in a way that is not self-sacrificing. And something about that, I feel like even as an adult, I could take from it. Now, I'm not going to comment on Sam Levinson. I'm not going to cap. To me, that's Zendaya's show. I don't even know who that man is. I have not done the research. I've heard that. I don't know. I think he has some allegations, but I'm not even sure if it's DV related or you know, some type of sexual misconduct related thing. However, I am going to start my deep dive by talking about the vast difference in aesthetic that we're seeing in the new season and how people are reacting to it. I am going to start off talking about how I do not think that the show is as visually compelling as it was in the first two seasons. I think that is a commentary on how because there are rumors, or no, there are allegations, there are rumors. It has been told. I don't know how to say it without you know what I'm saying? You know how when you don't want to get sued type shit? I basically don't want to get sued in saying this. So I'm going to say allegedly. The first two seasons of Euphoria's aesthetic were based off of a small time photographer. I actually forgot to Google her name, but I will add some of her work cascading around me at different points. If you're listening to this as only audio, I will leave it in the show notes. If you wanted to check her out and if you wanted to support a small photographer, because I do think it's important to do that. And that's what I'm about to get into now. The first two seasons of Euphoria were based off of this woman's work, and initially they reached out to her and they wanted to work with her personally. They wanted to work alongside her. They wanted to do this as a mano-y-mano type of situation. Long story short, they ended up not paying her. The tale is old as time in Hollywood, not paying a small time artist for their very specific and visually compelling aesthetic. Now, Do I think that's wrong? Yes. Do I think they still should have ran the show? No. Do I think them pivoting their aesthetic um, can contribute to the storyline in a way? Yes. And I'm going to explain to you how. Now, we're looking at Euphoria, the first two seasons. They're in high school. You know what I'm saying? They are supposed to be like 16 years old, 15, 16 years old, I believe. I believe like 16. Uh, Now they are older. So I feel like that whole and part of what this small photographer was attempting to capture is like that innocence and kind of like femininity that comes with being like a young teenage girl. And that's why it worked well for the show, because the primary and secondary characters are all teenage girls navigating the world. Also, they are navigating the world kind of surrounded by drugs. So we also get that trippy aesthetic that is going to engage the viewer. Um, Now, the show seems to have taken a somewhat Western turn. And I feel like not only does that go with some of the new characters that they are displaying, but it also can kind of be a commentary on how you kind of go from this um, very like trippy, lackadaisical, kind of like it is what it is, go with the flow view of life when you were young. But then as you get older, you graduate high school and you begin to live life a little bit more, and you kind of are starting to see the real. It kind of turns to the wild, wild west. Hold my hand. Hold my hand. Do you see it? Do you see it? Okay. I don't think that that takes away from the show for me, like necessarily visually, because is it as visually striking? No, but is there still like kind of a theme going? Yes. And one thing about me, if you know me, bitch loves a fucking theme. I love theming something after something. I do it all the time for like my birthday, my graduation, from high school, and my graduation from college. I've always like, when shit rolls around, a bitch got a theme ready. I promise you. The fact that we kind of like pivot themes, I think does go with the narrative. What I don't think that people understand about the narrative is I don't think that some people understand the segue that a lot of the characters have taken over the couple of years. I think they're treating this as if we didn't have like a 5-year time skip. So these are now supposed to be women who are entering into their mid 20s. Like these are not children anymore. So we are watching each of these characters like navigate the beginning of their adult life and how they are setting themselves up. And I actually, for the most part, think that every character in season three, their characteristics do tie back to season one and season two in one way or another. Now that episode 6 of season 3 has came out, because I'm recording this not at the finale. This is going to come out before the finale, and then I think I'm going to do another episode where I do a final analysis on the rest of the season at this point, because like, to be honest, it's just started getting sticky, and I wanted to talk about it. This whole narrative that the characters' personalities now don't necessarily tie back to their previous personalities is kind of ridiculous to me. And I feel like majority of this analysis of the first 6 episodes is going to be me trying to shoot down that narrative. To be quite honest, I think that I want to start with Cassie. Now, I feel like Cassie has taken a very integral role in this season. I think that we got to see a little bit into Cassie's background with her abandonment issues with her father, and how that tied to like her relationship with McKay and her eventual relationship with Nate. Now, I think that one of the main things that is stirring me like a little crazy about how people are like conversing about the show on social media is, why are we acting like Cassie was not like an intentional conduit for male attention in the first 2 seasons? Like, why are we acting like her wanting to advance in a of career, if you know what I mean? Because I don't know how YouTube takes censoring that, and I really am going to try my hardest to not censor this video, not have to censor it too much, because I found that really annoying. But I don't know why people don't think that she would be a of model. Why do you think that she would not be a of model? Why do you think that she would not have an of? Why? It's just something about like something about her just screamed it. Like something about her just screams that she craves male attention. And even though she thinks that she won this battle with Maddie, it's like she's still vining for like more, which is also scary, because that's kind of like a level of power hungry. And we kind of like also saw that tying back to her jumping around between McKay and Nate. But I think one huge aspect of that too is that she wanted to pursue what she believed to be like the alpha male of the school. I feel like Nate Jacobs in season one and season two was very much the, I forgot what their high school was even called. I don't even know if it was ever mentioned, but he was like that guy. Like he was white boy of the year there. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's not surprising to me that now that Maddie has her going around in the streets and like, you know, doing these like appearances in person to try and get her career more advanced. It's not surprising to me that she would take that opportunity to what seems to be, because I don't know how to 100% conceptualize that scene that happened in you know, the famous guy, I forgot what his name was too, like not important, tertiary character as fuck, um but the whole situation when like they went to the party, they meet the guy, Cassie ends up in his room, and to me it seems like if Maddie would not have walked in, despite the fact that Maddie told her not to, she would have slept with that man. And I think that it was partially because Cassie needed the validation to know that she was attractive enough and she was worthy enough and that she could basically pull a man like that, especially because she's been with the same guy since high school. And mind you, there are people living that life right now. That's another thing. People are saying that like these are not realistic paths for women who are. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, bro. It absolutely is realistic path. Like Cassie does not have a job and does OF. Was there not just an insurgence of this? And like she keeps preaching this whole like, oh, like you can make so much money. Wasn't there not just an insurgence of this like going crazy a couple of years ago? And I just want to be clear. I'm not shaming women who do OF, but like Cassie's low key doing it for the wrong reasons. And I also don't appreciate the fact that she's preaching this narrative that like everybody's making all this money and da da da. Because realistically, or people who think and engage with society in a realistic way know that most people on OnlyFans, like only the like top 1% of people on OnlyFans are like making like the type of money that like they're talking. So it's hard for me to believe that you guys are that media illiterate to not understand like the drawback to Cassie, because I feel like Cassie's pathway to like getting cuffed by some man in college, becoming his quote unquote high school sweetheart that she stole from her best friend, and then becoming a OF model. If you think that that's not somebody's real life, you're mistaken. You're mistaken. Now, speaking of best friends, we're going to segue to Maddie. Again, let's talk about the realism of Maddie and how her story that we've seen in season one and season two segues into what we're seeing right now. Boom. Maddie, I feel like we have to say this, bring this back up from season one, season two. Maddie is a child of an immigrant. Okay. Her mom busted her ass. Her parents were in like a loveless marriage. So to me, Maddie being the type of person that is not focused on men at all from what we see because of a heartbreak that she had in high school and completely devoting herself to her job and getting some type of side hustle because her job is obviously not paying her enough money. Um, and even down to like dealing with slightly humiliating things in order to keep food on your table. I feel like that is kind of like unfortunately a story that a lot of immigrants like suffer from. And I mean this when talking about like the fact that she's supposed to be like an assistant for like this fashion designer, fashion lady. Hello, this is Editing Venus. That lady is not a fashion designer. That lady is a manager for artists. So yeah, that's not what she does. Uh, I was wrong. Um, and she has her picking up dog poop off the floor in her office. Um, and I just feel like something like, and not to say that like it should be left there or that the person whose job it is like they should feel dehumanized because they do it, but like honestly, like they're in this big office, like you know that there is a maintenance man who has more than just a napkin from the coffee bar stand in the office, who has more than just a napkin, no glove, no nothing. You know what I'm saying? Maddie had nothing but a napkin scooping up dog shit. There's also this contrast between Maddie and Cassie where Maddie comes off as she's really confident, but sometimes she's really unsure of herself in her actions and her path. And then we have Cassie, who is insecure and very outwardly insecure and kind of like clumsy about that fact. Maddie would never let a bitch know she's insecure. Cassie doesn't even know how to mask it. She's never even conceptualized the fact that it's something that should be masked because she doesn't even notice that people can notice that. And I think that that is one of the reasons why Maddie and Nate were a very like type of toxic that was very volatile and loud. And I feel like Cassie and Nate are a type of volatile that is very quiet. And I think that that's a perfect way to segue us into talking about Nate. I think that Nate was the most misunderstood character in this season because of the fact that like everybody thinks that he's just like some good guy now, just because he hasn't done anything advertently wrong. You guys realize the focus hasn't really like been on him other than to kind of like build up and roil this like storyline about like him inheriting his dad's business and it failing. You guys want him like snatching people up and like he was doing in the later seasons of the, last couple seasons. We also have to realize that was a child. This is a grown man. He's grown up. He just had to take over a business. You know what I'm saying? So there's a level of like kind of like masking that he has learned to be a professional in front of these other individuals. And now he's getting into this marriage. He knows what he's doing, but he doesn't know what he's doing. He's making the same mistake that his father made, just marrying some girl in high school because she got pregnant, even though Cassie didn't get pregnant. So there's really no reason that they have to stay together, quite honestly. Because Nate's parents had to deal with the societal expectation that they get married because of the fact that like there was a child involved now. But Cassie and Nate aren't really dealing with that type of situation right now. So they're honestly just staying together because both of them are too toxic to be alone. On top of that, Nate knew that he was going fucking broke. He knew that he was going broke, and he knew that he couldn't stir the pot with Cassie too much because at the end of the day, when you marry somebody, you got to split that debt unless there's some type of prenuptial agreement involved that says something different. You have to split that debt. You have to split that debt. So part of the reason why I believe that this whole thing with the marriage was hidden was because he wanted to put that on her. He wanted to trap her. He wasn't going to trap her with a baby. He was going to trap her with money. He was going to trap her with an insurmountable amount of debt. And honestly, if we keep it a buck, most of Nate's lines for the first 5 episodes were like, I don't want you to do an OnlyFans. I don't want to buy $50K worth of flowers. And there wasn't enough things that were happening that involved him that would have even surmounted to him to have an emotional reaction. But now in season 6, in episode 6, we are seeing that he's kind of coming to this fever pitch point where he is realizing that he cannot build the retirement home that he wants to build. And that is where we see Nate Jacobs crack once again. I think that we have to put into consideration like the end of season 2 when his dad, like pissed in the fucking hall. His dad pissed in the fucking hallway and basically like pieced out on them in the middle of the night. Gave his business to his son and was just like, yeah, F it. I think that was a severely traumatized young man. That was a severely traumatized child who turned into a severely traumatized young man. And then he learned how to mask it really good. And now as an adult, things are not going his way. And we watched that boil up in the first 5 episodes. And now we're watching it crack as he first of all, is repeatedly beat by mobsters because he owes them millions of dollars. I don't even understand how you're like 23 years old and you get into millions of dollars of debt. But somehow so is Rue. Rue's in millions of dollars of debt too, we come to find out. My basic overall arching analysis of Jay Jacobs is that you guys just think that he's a good guy now, or you think that they're trying to portray him as a good guy now, which is making you think that he's this character that is not related to the Nate Jacobs from season 1 or season 2. It's like, I seen it from the beginning. I could see right through Nate Jacobs' bullshit from the very fucking beginning. Like, he has to put on this good guy face because he's Mr. Suit and Tie, Mr. Retirement Home now, so he can't just go around like beating his wife. This is not to be on no like victim blaming shit or like none of that. Maddie got beat because Maddie was independent. The reason why Nate Jacobs put his hands on Maddie every time that he did, it was because Maddie was doing something that he perceived to be incorrect. If we look at his relationship with Cassie is very moldable and malleable because she was abandoned by her father and she needs someone in her life. She needs somebody to tell her what to do. or she's not going to know what to do. She doesn't know who she is unless Nate tells her who she is. You know what I'm saying? So he doesn't necessarily have to deal with the same type of veracity and type of like ferocity that was coming from Maddie. And I'm not like that's and I feel like this goes without saying, but like that's not on some like Maddie deserved it shit. But like I said, like they're a quiet type of toxic. Like it's not the screaming and throwing shit type of toxic all the time. Even though they get to that point too, they just seem like they are not as physically volatile, which I think lends. I think that they do that to show the difference in personality between the girls. Room. We'll get more into like the exact plot of the show in a minute, but I really just wanted to like attack these rumors and how I think that like season 1 and 2 characters are still connected to them. We are going to go into like new characters, new beefs, plot lines and stuff in a second. Rue, essentially they say Rue's story is after they graduated, she started working at a smoke shop. Lori pulls up on her one day. Another thing that a lot of people were saying, oh, the suitcase thing is never going to come back up. The suitcase thing is never going to come back up. And I'm so glad that the writers and directors that they had the knowledge and the creative ability to ensure that they could pivot the entire plot like essentially around that suitcase from season 2, which is cool. Like I think that it's cool that we completely shifted the story and shifted the aesthetic, but we are still making all of these connecting points, which is why despite all of the things that happened in the background, and obviously like they essentially like scammed a small photographer, I have to lend credit to like the creativity of the show, and I have to lend credit to their ability to connect all these thoughts, ideas, and characters in a way without leaving many plot holes. Works at a smoke shop or whatever. Lori pulls up on her, and that stupid fucking voice that I hate. Hey, Rue, you know you owe me that suitcase of drugs that was $100,000. But now, according to my interest, that's about $4.5 million. Do you have anything to say about that, Rue? Take $100,000 now, but I don't think you have that either. Long story short, she becomes a drug mule. She's smuggling drugs from fucking Mexico, um, which is kind of crazy. Uh, I don't think that becoming a drug smuggler is like super common. However, I do think that if you're a Rue and you take $10,000 from a drug dealer, and they need to get to across borders, and you owe them money, I'm pretty sure they would be like, put this shit in your butt or I'm gonna blow you up. See, with Rue, one of the only surprising things with me is that we didn't watch her like struggle with her mental illness or like struggle with her drug addiction more. Because that was such a pivotal thing that happened in season 1. Rue is like the only person I feel like took a serious hard lean pivot that I feel like is mildly unrealistic. I know that like they say that like she had relapsed a couple times, like kind of like, not portrayed on cam or whatever. But I just feel like we would see a little bit more of like the struggling, the withdrawals, the like OCD and stuff that she was apparently diagnosed with as a child, kind of like acting. We would see these things being presented in a way that would be cohesive to season 1 and season 2. That's like kind of the only thing that I feel like her using it as an excuse when her using relapsing as an excuse when getting in a sticky situation was a good idea. But I do think that like we have to open up the doors to the possibilities that like Rue probably would have actually relapsed, like in some of the situations that we see her presented in season 3. Actually, we did see her relapse once. And then we have Jules. The whole situation with Jules this season is that we are seeing her dissecting gender and sexuality and stuff again more. We see her exploring being an artist, and we see her basically sugar babied out. Sugar babied out real bad, actually. She is basically having her entire lifestyle funded right now by an older man, which again, consistent pattern from season 1 and season 2. She was fucking Nate Jacobs' dad. Begin season 3, episode 1 with Jules talking to a therapist about how her femininity is so attached to its ability to have masculinity gravitate towards it that she doesn't even like know what femininity means to her anymore. And I feel like this was like a beautiful analysis on femininity, because I do think that though the creator of the show is male, and though like his view on women is like probably not great, probably not fantastic, in telling these stories, and like he thinks that he's just telling a raunchy story. In order to write a story, you have to kind of get into the characteristics of each character. You have to essentially like take on a level of empathy and take on a level of understanding for every single characteristic that like makes a character a character. And in order to do that, he had to get very introspective about a community that like, and whether he did that through like research and like talking to other people, or whether he did that through like deep psychological work, he probably did it through like just fucking talking to other people and stealing their riz, as we can see by the fact that he steals aesthetics. Jules is navigating her gender and sexuality in a way where she thinks that it is so ingrained. Her gender is so ingrained with her sexuality that in a sense, I'm grasping that she's beginning to question her gender identity once again. Euphoria touches on a lot of like popular topics. I feel like that was kind of hinting towards like, you know, the trend of like detransitioning and people saying that like, you know, like they transitioned for the wrong reasons, stuff like that. And though I do believe that you can commit to a process and then like change your mind about it and stuff like that, I do think that it's a very interesting way to like pivot Jules' character specifically, because of the fact that in season 1 and season 2 she seemed so adamant on the fact that she always knew she was a woman. Oh, actually, I was saying that he probably just got these ideas from like interviewing people. Hunter Schafer actually like was like the executive producer or something. Like she was credited on like helping to create the episodes. I do like think that some of these thoughts are like really introspective on the trans community and how like they feel about the fluidity of gender. And I think it's so important for us to discuss this, because the gender binary is honestly killing us. The gender binary and like, you know, men and women's inability to let go of these rigid standards put on. Part of what's making everybody so unhappy, like, oh, everybody's walking around trying to be something else and somebody else, is just like demeaning society in a way that is causing a lot of negativity. And that's why people go online, they catfish, they have the fake profiles with the no profile picture and stuff like that. They're doing that because that is a way to essentially be able to be anything they want. You be a chameleon. If you have no profile picture, if your profile picture is a picture of a fucking cat, like you could literally be anybody. Everybody loves cats. Yeah, so now we're gonna get into the plot. I'm not gonna lie, this ponytail's hurting my head. I feel like I should take it out. I believe the whole first episode was an episode that was co-written with Hunter Schafer, and it was all about like kind of like the inner workings of Jules' mind right now, and how her gender and her sexuality are so intertwined that her femininity is based off of the approval of men, which is causing her to evaluate like where to go from here with her identity. Lexi, I didn't mention Lexi, but Lexi is basically the same bitch as she was last season. Um, Everybody's like really surprised that these people still know each other. Dude, it's only been 5 years and they all live in the same area. Like none of them really left the area. So why are we surprised that like they're all still kind of in contact? Woo. I have been watching the show week by week, and honestly, I did not rewatch it in order to make this video. I essentially just wrote down my thoughts and the things that I remembered and that were important and that I wanted to talk about. But I do want to give a brief like overview of kind of everything that's happening in the show before I get into like kind of my analysis of the new characters. I really wanted to touch on Rue and Jules' relationship, and I kind of want to just like wrap up with my thoughts on like where things are gonna go. We start this season and we come to find out that Cassie and Nate Jacobs are getting married. This is to the surprise of not me, but apparently a lot of you guys. We see that Nate Jacobs is taking over his dad's business, like I previously mentioned, and they're about to get married. They have a wedding planned, and they, of course, invited like all of the primary and tertiary characters, including Rue. We also see Rue and Faye start drug muling consistently for that lady named Lori. They're also living with her, two very, very racist white dudes, and a bird. That entire like household dynamic was like kind of weird because it's like you guys are literally like neo-Nazis, Confederate flags everywhere. And you're so comfortable doing this like Rue's not there. Rue occasionally goes to like hang out with Lexi. Her and Lexi have been friends since childhood, so again, not surprising, they're still in the same area. And now she's clean, so sometimes when she doesn't stay at Lori's, we find out that she stays at Lexi's and that she also Ubers on the side to make a little bit more money. We also find out she has been kind of contemplating her religious beliefs, contemplating like giving herself back to God, basically. And we also find out that Lexi and Maddie work at the same place. Lexi is working as like an assistant to an executive producer, like on a TV show. And Maddie is working for like fashion, costume, TV set design, fashion lady, I guess. Rue is getting tired of like this whole life of drug muling, and she confessed to Ali, her AA guy, her AA like mentor guy, the guy who she met at Narcotics Anonymous, not Alcoholics Anonymous, but who's supposed to be helping her like stay on the straight and narrow. We see a scene of them at the diner, and essentially like they're having a conversation about God. And Rue is like, doesn't God not like gay people? Ali, a God fearing man himself, is like, hey, like I don't really believe that that's what God meant by that. Kind of like, they were in war; they didn't have time to be gay. That's literally like essentially what he said. But now it's like kind of different. Like we got time to be gay. Which was like, it was a beautiful way to show like how religious literacy it is like really important, because like sometimes people need to know that they're a good person. Not everybody is a good person, but like we kind of live in like we live in times that like we, we live in times that makes it hard to be a good person sometimes. And I feel like Rue kind of just like faced some things that were like particularly hard. And as a young woman, she didn't know how to deal with that, and that caused her to act out, to do drugs, to betray her mom, stuff like that. And that's obviously why we don't see much of her mom around, because I'm assuming that her mom doesn't let her around much because of the fact that Rue's an addict. Rue goes, she does a run for Lori where she's supposed to drop off some drugs, and it's at this strip club. And she ends up meeting one of the girls. She ends up dancing with the girl. She having a good old time with Rue gay ass. The guy because not only are they strippers, they are also women of the night. He ends up meeting Alamo, who is the pimp of sorts, I guess you can say, of these women of the night. Who also work at the strip club, because the strip club is basically a front for a women of the night layer. And so with that, that's why they needed the drug. Rue basically tells this man that he believes that God sent her here and that she's supposed to work for him. After a whole incident where like one of the girls overdoses on fentanyl from the drugs because they were like kind of spiked, Rue starts working for Alamo. They kind of were like fighting for her for a second, and he literally said, "You took one of my bitches, I'm taking one of yours." While all of this is happening, we see that she kind of goes through this whole situation where she's managing this girl on social media, and she's managing this girl's and like she has to quit essentially because of her day job, which is all too common. We see how when it became popular and a lot of people were trying to do it as a side gig, because that's also how it's portrayed. It's portrayed as like a good side gig, a good way to make side money. She chooses to do this because, again, as a hardworking and honest woman, like she does it. And the young lady that she was managing ends up basically becoming super famous like immediately after, which does kind of put Maddie in a slump, because Maddie's like, damn, like I could have quit this fuck ass job and I kind of let this lady discourage me. Who wants to do provocative content, sees that Maddie is kind of doing like management and she's hanging out with all these famous people and stuff like that. She basically decides that she's going to DM Maddie, and she wants to have like a conversation basically on some like, I miss you, like let's chat type shit. This whole thing goes down. And when it goes down, like honestly, like Maddie was on some cornball shit, showing up to the fucking pool in a fur coat. But I'm gonna let her slide, because this bitch was your friend and tried to steal your fucking man. Not even tried, did steal your fucking man. Has the nerve to be marrying him, and has the nerve to want to talk to you a couple weeks before that and invite you to the fucking wedding. Fucking the audacity of fucking Cassie Howard. Shows up to the pool with like a fucking bikini with a fur coat on and sunglasses with her hair and some, you know what I'm saying? Like just dolled up. She ate low key. Like she ate, I'm not gonna lie. It just looked too damn hot outside to be wearing that fur coat. We see this whole conversation play out where we come to find out that honestly, the only reason why Cassie even hit Maddie up was because she wanted her help with the whole OnlyFans content thing, because Maddie agrees to help Cassie for some reason. I don't fucking know why, but she does. And Cassie's just like really desperate to get this money, because her and Nate Jacobs are supposed to be getting married, like I said, and she wants $50,000 worth of flowers. $50,000 worth of fucking flowers. Now, don't get me wrong, the wedding was beautiful. I know it's like, stage stuff and stuff like that. Like the flowers and stuff might have been like fake, you know what I'm saying? But like if they were real and it really was $50,000 worth of flowers, beautiful wedding. However, little does she know that this man is in an extreme amount of fucking debt. He literally owes so many people money because he's been trying to make this like retirement home thing launch off, and it's just not giving. It's not giving. They got these endangered flowers on the lot, and they like can't build around it essentially because like they're like there might be more like federally protected. Nate Jacobs is getting to the point where like he's been building this thing for like so long that like he's just eating money and eating money and eating money, and he's not able to pay back any of his investors. However, Cassie does not know this. She just wants $50,000 worth of flowers. She's like, I'll get it by selling my ass on OnlyFans. Nate Jacobs is like, you will not get it by selling your ass on OnlyFans. They have this barbecue, and essentially like we start seeing how like Cassie's like low-key embarrassing him in front of his like business friends, his business people and stuff like that. And he gets like really pissed off about the whole like thing. And I think that this is one of the points where people are like, this is not the Nate Jacobs that I know because he would have like da 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 da. But like one, he was in front of people. He literally was in front of people, and he did not want to seem abusive in front of people that are supposed to be like giving him money and investing in him. He didn't want to seem like a fucking crazy person. And that's something that abusers do. Like they like to put on a nice face for people who that they like don't want to abuse. Because it also helps give them credibility when like the abuse comes out. They're like, how can I be abusive when I'm nice to so many people? That's why you're nice to so many people, because you're abusive and you know that like you needed a fucking alibi. You have the attention of Alamo and his girls and his goons when Rue transitions from working for Alamo to now working for Lori to now working for Alamo. Alamo is the owner of a strip club, and he has a couple of other businesses that we come to find out are all like quite a bit sketchy. He, instead of having Rue do like a bunch of like muling type activities and stuff like that, she's essentially like the manager of the strip club. And she is going through this thing where she is like trying to look towards God. And she says that she believes that God sent her to Alamo or whatever. And so Alamo thinks that this is amusing and decides to let her work as the manager. When this happens, she does like, because we all know that, Rue gay. She starts canoodling with one of the girls. The girls that she canoodled with was friends with the girl that Lori's people essentially got killed with her drugs that were partially laced with him. So we kind of watch Angel's, that's what her name was, Angel's spiral into having to be taken to a rehabilitation center. Come to find out, or what's hinted at, is that essentially this rehabilitation center is like probably another form of human trafficking or like organ trafficking, and they probably just like unfortunately like murdered her. I believe that she was sent away essentially because she was going to continue to question where her friend who was killed went. We then see Rue kind of like mentally toil with the fact that she's coming to the realization that the strip club is not just a strip club, and that she is watching some of these young girls who are eager for Alamo's attention be abused by other men at the club for a fee, essentially, because that is partially what the club is a front for, like kind of like a prostitution ring type situation. And in doing this, she's found out by one of the other girls named Magic. Now, Magic essentially ends up confronting Rue. They get into it in front of one of the other. Oh, hold on, pause. At some point before in between all of this, Rue gets arrested and basically ends up having to start working for the FBI because they found a bunch of drugs in her car. So now at this point, like she's a rat, like they tapped her phone. So she's going around, all this stuff has happened. She's, asking people, like she asked the one girl, Kitty, basically if she was being forced to do this, and she was overheard by Magic. Now Magic's like, oh, I don't trust her. She is a snitch. And essentially people, like Bishop, who is kind of like secondhand man to Alamo, are starting to sniff Rue out for like possibly being a snitch because she's working for the FBI and she's starting to act weird because this is a 22-year-old girl who is doing undercover cop shit. Her whole purpose as an undercover was essentially to get Lori and Alamo to set up another deal so the FBI can get them both somehow, I guess. So she's trying to do that, but now they're beefing with each other. Alamo ends up killing Lori's bird. They run up in Alamo's shit and they rob this safe full of drugs. But little do they know these drugs are fake drugs that were planted by the FBI when Rue was originally caught by the FBI and became an informant. So now they have shot like one of his other secondhand men. There's a lot of like new tertiary characters. I do not remember their name. They shoot that guy. He ends up, and he's actually, he's played by the guy who plays Dwayne in A Different World. I low-key didn't recognize him because he's a lot older. Also, he kind of looks like my sister's dad, which was throwing me off. Yeah, so we see how they end up, Lori's goons end up coming back and robbing these drugs them basically for killing because Bishop went over to the house and killed the bird. Bishop is crazy. Like, I'm kind of like feeling him as a character. He's really like stoic, and like I also think it's funny that like somebody said to me like right before like Euphoria like premiered, somebody was like, yeah, you know, when a nigga got like that like little fro, when a nigga got that little fro and then he got the two dreads in the back, like he's like, bro, he got at least 3 bodies. Like he got at least 3 bodies. He's out here killing folks. Dropped the fucking bird like it was nothing. Literally killed a bird like damn near for no reason. I think that the show is progressing and like the whole storyline that ties from the suitcase is going like really well. Rue ends up giving the FBI like what they wanted. I also wanted to touch on Rue and Jules' relationship. Throughout the series, we see that they are still cool. But you know, of course, that there are those like underlying tones of like romance. And what we come to find out is that I guess they still occasionally sleep together. Jules is basically like, yeah, you gonna come eat this pussy. Like, but like I said, Jules's entire lifestyle is essentially being financed by like this guy that we only see like once or twice. Married, rich guy, wife, stuff like that. You know, probably just like kind of gay or into freaky shit and like, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of ashamed of it. So instead of his wife like divorcing him, she's probably like staying for the kids and letting him have his fun on the side. And in order to, you know, remain secret, they basically have like she's essentially a caged bird for a married man who has like a similar complex to the one that Nate's dad has. So it's like she's directly repeating her actions from season 1 and 2. Like Jules is not a far cry from season 1 and 2's Jewel at all. They end up sleeping together. He finds a pair of boxers that belong to Rue because, you know, mass WLW. This essentially sets him off, leading to him telling Jules that like, I like you, but I like my family more. You can't like bring me no STDs. You got me fucked up. You're fucking niggas in my house. You know, saying stuff like that. And Jules is like, it's not like that. It's not like that. Whatever. Like, it won't happen again. And so, like, the next time she sees Jules is talking about how essentially she wants to attempt to change her life and like pursue the American dream. And Jules is like, well, that shit is a fallacy. And she was like, so like, what's better, basically being shacked up like a fucking caged bird by a married man? Because like, that's a fucking fallacy to me. Jules is like, don't speak on our relationship. She's like, girl, it's not even a fucking relationship. He literally just comes over here and fucks you and then like leaves you. Jules proceeds to slap the shit out of Rue. Slap that bitch so hard, she hit the painting that bitch was working on. The painting fell on her. She knocked the whole damn table down. Then she talking about that nigga gonna be here in 45 minutes. I suggest you get the fuck out my painting. The disrespect. That's kind of like where like that whole thing ends. When we're seeing them have this conversation about Rue wanting to pursue a further relationship with Jules and Jules feeling like even the thought or the ability of thinking that's possible was unfathomable, or kind of like this American dream fallacy that that Rue was imagining and could not actually be brought into fruition. Like we kind of see how Rue is still kind of sort of on that codependent vibe with Jules, where she feels like she needs Jules, and like I feel like somewhat a lot of the times like Jules is afraid of that because she feels like Rue's sobriety depends on her. I do feel a lot of sympathy for Jules for like trying to love somebody that has like an addictive personality disorder or addictive like substance disorder. But I think that Jules will always have that hole of abandonment. I think part of the reason that she does not believe in that American dream, like, you know, nuclear family household, is because one, she is a trans woman. And a lot of times I feel like because of the quote unquote oddity of being a trans woman, and because it's not like kind of accepted in society that trans women deserve love outside of a sexual sense, I feel like Jules kind of internalizes that. But also like the abandonment when it came down to like them getting on that train together and the fact that Rue did not come, Jules will never let Rue live that down. And that is I feel like that's something that we saw displayed like within that argument. Um we saw like Rue wanting to become more intertwined with Jules, and now Jules is the one who's doing the running. She's doing the one that's pulling away. Rue's religious arc is honestly like something that's like kind of beautiful to me because I feel like it's taking a non-traditional route to the holiness. We do see like the imagery of the church, and like one thing about me, I think church imagery is so aesthetic. I love church imagery. Um, so like the shots that they had of her in the church when she went to go talk to her mom and she was reading like the little pamphlet from the family in Texas that she met, that she thought that they were like so happy. The little 10 Commandments pamphlet that they gave her. I think that family had a lot of influence on what Rue thinks she wants and what she thinks is like peace. And I think that also is going back to what she craved in the household when she was a child, because like she didn't grow up in a like tumultuous household in the sense that like her parents hated each other. She grew up in a tumultuous household in the fact that like she essentially had to watch when her parents die at a very like, young age. And then she also had access to a lot of um hard drugs that she was curious about at a very young age because of her father's illness. So seeing her go like into this like religious arc is one like one again perfect pathway, a perfect pathway, because the basis of Narcotics Anonymous is religion. The basics of AA, all these different like kind of like addiction quit programs, like is like getting a religious basis in order to have a foundation to which you can grow. So I think that her exploring this further throughout the season and them just not leaving that whole like idea of her meeting that family and kind of like fantasizing about her life, the fact that that's carried on through the six episodes is actually like really beautiful. And I also do think that they're portraying a certain level of religious literacy that's not like forcing religion into a box, even though they're using like church imagery to display her coming back to like a basis of like good morality. It is kind of hilarious that the lady that plays her mom, Miss Nika King, was shook that she only had one line that was actually in the show, and it was kind of funny to me. But uh, you know, I feel like that actress specifically, Miss Nika King, like she complains a lot about uh her acting career and how it's like how she's not a superstar and she had to go back to running a restaurant with her mom. Um, but I feel like she doesn't realize for like most people on TV, it is like that. Like for, like Chloe Cherry and people like that, they're like, know what I'm saying? Like the more, especially like with Euphoria, like they casted a lot of like yeah, they have Zendaya and they have like Hunter Schafer and they have, but like a lot of the people that they picked were not like super well known actresses, or at least like from my understanding, before like they had a couple of like big names in there, like the guy who played McSteamy that recently passed away or whatever, like a couple big names, but like at the end of the day, yeah, like Rue's mom wasn't all that important this season. I'm hoping that maybe like she'll get more lines further down, because I do want Rue and her mom to like get back on good terms. But yeah, I kind of like where this religious arc is going, and the fact that they ended the last episode with like the burning bush situation. Like I really need to know what these next couple episodes are going to be about. Rue unintentionally introduces, essentially Alamo starts sniffing Rue out. Alamo starts sniffing Rue out for like being a stitch. She's like he's basically like something's fucking up. Like those people who robbed us or stuff like that, because she knows Faye. So they see Faye on the security camera. They find out that she knows Faye. She ends up asking Faye for help. We find out that Faye is apparently trying to got a Nazi symbol tramp stamp and is trying to have a baby by this fucking racist. So she asks for a favor. She needs a key to the safe, a picture of the key to the safe so that it could be 3D printed. She basically, uses the memory of Fez to convince Faye to do it. Around this time, she unintentionally introduces Alamo to Maddie, and Maddie essentially enters in a business deal with Alamo. And I feel like she absolutely did not understand she did not understand what she was doing at all in any capacity when she did this, because I don't think that she understood that this man, like that these girls were like kind of like, this is like low key human trafficking. Like this is low key sex trafficking, babe. And we come to a point where like she starts working with them and Cassie, getting them popping on OnlyFans at the same time. She somehow lands Cassie an audition for a role on the TV show that Lexi works for. Lexi is pissed, pissed, pissed. And she essentially does it anyway. She ends up getting the part. And like we see that episode 6 kind of ends with the directors being like super hyper fascinated about like this whole thing, this whole OF thing, and like Cassie's whole transformation. And they essentially say that they may have a more permanent role for her on the TV show if and only if she were willing to delete her OnlyFans. This is also after a whole situation happened with her and Maddie, where she tried to leave Maddie for that the guy that fucks with the lady that she used to work with. I really should have like Googled all these characters' names, but it's like honestly either you get it, you don't. She drew up a contract essentially because like Cassie tried to like basically up and leave her because the thing is Cassie doesn't even know what she wants. She does not know how to negotiate. She does not know how to handle herself, and that's why every time somebody puts a contract in her face, she just signs it. And what she doesn't understand is that she's essentially doing the same thing that Nate did, like thinking that she can have all of these things at once and do all of these things simultaneously and basically spreading herself super thin. You're making all these commitments and saying that you could do all these things simultaneously. And first of all, like the second set of people don't want you unless you dump the first. But you have a contractual obligation to Maddie. You can't just like skip out on Maddie. And Maddie did that intentionally. Hardworking woman. After she caught wind that Cassie was going to leave her the first time, I feel like it was really like nice that she had her ducks in a row and she drew up that contract and had her sign it, because now when Maddie finds out that she deleted the OnlyFans, and which I'm hoping will happen next episode. Like I'm honestly hoping that will happen tomorrow. It will be interesting to see like how that plays out because of the personality of both characters. That's kind of like my whole recap on Euphoria so far. I am really liking the way it's going. Honestly, I feel like this might segue me into like watching more shows when they're actually coming out. Got into Letterbox'd. I started watching a lot of movies because I have a job where like I honestly just like sit in a store and like do like I work at a tobacco store. Like I feel like there's one on every corner, so it's not even going to be doxing myself. I work at a tobacco store now. I do 2 8-hour shifts a week, and like I essentially watch TV the whole time I'm there. So that's like a new hobby of mine. I will link my Letterboxd in the show notes, just in case like any of you guys want to see like what my opinions are on different movies. I'm trying to cover a variety of movies, like old movies, new movies, black movies, white movies, because I also feel like there's like this kind of like field of like B-list black movies, like kind of like those movies that Beyonce played in back in like 2006 and shit. Like it's like it's B-list because like they could afford Beyonce, but like also in 2006, like Beyonce, like that wasn't really much to afford. Like she's not Beyonce today. Like you couldn't get Beyonce to do a fucking a movie about being the wife of a man who's cheating with a white woman. You couldn't get her to do that in the year of 2026. I don't think that you could get Beyonce to do that. Not for like $25,000,000,000. Like I've been getting into my little cinephile bag. I have Hulu, Apple TV, and Netflix. So if you have any suggestions and they are on any of those platforms, or I have access to an HBO account and like a couple of other things, if you just have any movies like on streaming or anything like that, that you think that the Venus Zaire will enjoy, then I would really appreciate it if you comment it down below, DM it to me on Instagram or anything like that. All of my social media tags, I'm gonna keep it so a buck with y'all. These lights are frying my eyes. Like that's partially why I had to take a break. I got lightheaded low-key from staring at the lights. That's why like I don't make a lot of like super direct eye contact. And this is my first podcast episode in almost a year. In the time in between, I literally had a tooth extraction where like they essentially like low-key cracked my jaw to get it out. It was a complex tooth extraction. And now when I talk for long periods of time, like it honestly just like my jaw starts hurting. Basically, my jaw just hurts like really bad all the time. I was talking to one of my coworkers today about, my thoughts and feelings on Euphoria, and somebody was like, "You're really into this," and I was like, "No, I'm just really into like talking about stuff. Like I'm just really into talking, like period." And I think that is like one of the most beautiful things in life, like being able to talk to people and kind of like learn things and just kind of like bounce ideas back and forth and like opinions back and forth. It's one of the most beautiful things in life to me. Like quitting the pod or like ended up having to like, have a abrupt season finale and like reboot was not something that like I expected to happen. But honestly, like there's so many things that I'm trying to learn. I'm hoping that like my thoughts, feelings, and opinions are something that you guys find entertaining. And I think that I'm just going to end this here. I was going to try and talk about a couple other things, but I feel like I've been talking for like an hour and a half. And I didn't want this episode to be more than 45 minutes. So I'm going to cut it up. I'm going to chop it up. I hope that you understand. I hope you enjoyed the different things that I discussed today. I hope you'll come back for season 2, episode 2 of The Coffee Table. My name is Venus Zaire. You guys have a great rest of your day. Stay safe. Stay cool.